The human always dreamed of her. Night after night he saw the same vision. A tall alien princess with glowing silver eyes and a crown made of light. She stood in a hall filled with stars. She always looked at him with sadness. And when he tried to reach her, the dream ended. For years he told no one. He thought it was only a strange dream. But in his heart he felt it was real. He worked as an explorer for the human fleet, traveling from one world to another, fixing machines, helping settlers, and sometimes fighting raiders. But no matter where he went, her face never left his mind. On one mission, his ship landed on a desert world called the Laura. The planet was ruled by alien warlords. Humans came here only for trade and resources. He stepped off the ship and walked through the alien market. Tall towers of black stone rose in the distance. Guards in armor watched every street. Strange creatures sold food and weapons. The air smelled of smoke and fear. And then he froze. Inside a golden cage at the center of the market, there she was, the princess from his dreams. Her skin glowed faint blue under the sun. Her silver eyes scanned the crowd with quiet sorrow. Chains of crystal were wrapped around her wrists. She wore a long gown torn at the edges. Still, she looked more royal than anyone around her. The human's heart almost stopped. This was not a dream. This was real. He whispered to himself, "It's her." His voice trembled. He moved closer, pushing through the crowd. The alien traders laughed. They shouted prices for the princess as if she was a prize. Some called her the jewel of the Laura. Others said she would be married to the strongest warlord. The human clenched his fists. His stomach burned with anger. How could they treat her like this? The princess lifted her head slowly. Her silver eyes met his. For a moment, the noise of the market disappeared. It felt like only the two of them existed. Her lips moved, and though the guard stood close, he heard her whisper, "You came." The human froze in shock. She knew him. She recognized him. But how? They had never met before, only in dreams. He looked around. The guards noticed his stare. One stepped forward and growled in alien tongue, telling him to move away. The human forced himself to step back, but his eyes never left hers. She leaned slightly forward, her chains clinking softly, and whispered again, "Do not leave." His breath caught. His mind raced. Was this fate? Was this some trap? Or was destiny calling him? He returned to his ship that night, but he could not sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her face, and her voice echoed in his ears, "Do not leave." The other humans in his crew warned him, "Stay away from alien politics. Stay away from the princess. It's too dangerous." But his heart refused to listen. For the first time in his life, the dream felt alive, and now it was pulling him toward a path filled with danger. He sat by the window of the ship, looking at the alien city lights glowing in the desert night, and whispered to himself, "Why me? Why her? Why now?" He did not know the answer, but he knew one thing. He could not walk away. The next morning, he returned to the market. The princess was still in the cage, but this time, when their eyes met, he did not look away. And in that silent exchange, a dangerous story began, a story that would change both of their worlds forever. The city of the Laura was not like any other place the human had seen. Tall towers made of black stone rose into the sky, their walls glowing with strange red lines. The streets were wide, but filled with fear. Alien warlords ruled here with iron fists, and their guards watched every corner, heavy weapons hanging from their shoulders. The human walked through those streets, but his eyes always searched for her, the alien princess who haunted his dreams. She was kept in the golden cage in the central square, a prisoner yet still a queen. Her beauty made the crowd stare, but her chains reminded everyone she was not free. He stopped near a group of traders who whispered about her. They said she was the last daughter of the royal bloodline. If she married one of the warlords, he would become the ruler of all the Laura. They also said the princess had refused every offer so far. She was waiting for something or someone. The human's chest tightened. He thought of her words, "Do not leave." He wondered how she knew him, why she spoke as if she had seen him before. Could it be true that she dreamed of him just as he dreamed of her? At night, he returned to the square in secret. The guards were fewer, the crowd was gone. The cage stood silent under the pale moonlight. He moved closer, his heart beating fast. The princess looked at him through the bars, her silver eyes glowing softly. She whispered, "You came back." He nodded slowly. I could not stay away. Her lips curved into the faintest smile. I have seen you before. In visions, the stars showed me you would come. He felt a chill run down his spine. Visions, he whispered back. I dreamed of you too. Her hands gripped the bars of the cage, her voice low but strong. If you leave me here, my people will suffer. The warlords will force me to choose one of them. And when that happens, the rest of my kind will be enslaved. The human swallowed hard. He had only come as an explorer. His mission was never to interfere with alien politics. Yet here he was, staring into the eyes of a princess who seemed to know his soul. You want me to help you, he said, his voice shaking. She leaned closer. Not want. Need. You are the only one who can. His mind spun. How could one human stand against an entire alien empire? The warlords had armies, fleets, and power beyond measure. He was only one man. But still, when he looked at her, he knew he could not walk away. Suddenly, the sound of boots echoed in the square. Alien guards approached, their eyes sharp, their weapons glowing. One shouted in his language, pointing at the human. The human stepped back, forcing himself to look away. The princess quickly sat back inside her cage, pretending to ignore him. The guards pushed him aside, their eyes full of suspicion. That night, back in his ship, he could not rest. He looked at the stars above the desert, the same stars that appeared in his dreams, and he whispered, Why me? Why her? His crew warned him again. Stay away. The warlords will kill you. She is not ours to save. But their words did not touch his heart. He remembered the way she whispered, You are the only one. The next day, rumors spread across the city. The princess would soon be forced to announce her betrothal. The strongest warlord demanded her hand, and if she refused again, she would be punished in front of the people. The human clenched his fists. The thought of her being broken by those cruel rulers filled him with fire. He knew the road ahead was dangerous, but something deep inside told him that his fate was tied to hers. As the desert sun set, he walked again toward the palace gates, his shadow long against the sand, his heart steady, his choice made. He whispered to himself, I will not let her face this alone. And from the highest tower, the princess watched him come, her eyes shining with both fear and hope. The story of destiny had begun to unfold, and neither human nor alien could stop it now. The palace of the Laura was a fortress carved from black stone. Its gates were guarded by armored soldiers with glowing spears. Inside its halls, banners of the warlords hung like chains of power, and at the very center, the princess was kept like a treasure, not as a daughter, not as a queen, but as a prize to be claimed. The human slipped through the shadows, his steps silent, his heart pounding. He knew if he was caught here, his life would end. Still, he moved forward, guided not by logic, but by the memory of her silver eyes. He found her chamber through a narrow passage. The door was guarded, but the princess herself stood by the window, her gaze lost in the stars. When he whispered her name, she turned sharply, her chains clinking softly. You should not be here, she whispered, her voice trembling with fear and hope. And yet I am, he replied, stepping closer. I could not leave you. Her eyes softened. The visions were true. You came for me. The human reached for the bars that separated them. Tell me what you need. The princess drew a deep breath, her voice low but strong. I must choose a husband in 7 days. If I refuse again, my people will be punished. If I choose a warlord, they will be enslaved forever. But if I choose you, the warlords will declare war. He stared at her in shock. Me, he whispered. I am no king. I am no warrior prince. I am only human. Her lips curved into a faint smile. That is why you are different. You do not see me as a prize. You see me as a person. My people need someone who fights with heart, not with greed. His chest tightened. He wanted to deny it, but deep inside he knew. Fate had brought him here for this reason. Suddenly, footsteps echoed in the corridor. The princess quickly pulled him closer to the shadows. Her chain rattled against the wall. The guards passed by, their voices low but sharp, suspicion in every word. One of them stopped, glancing toward the door. The human held his breath, but after a long moment, they moved on. The princess exhaled slowly, her eyes returning to his. They are watching me, watching us. If they discover you, They will kill you and claim my throne before the blood dries. He clenched his fists. Then we must be careful. She leaned closer, her voice barely a breath. If you stand with me, I will stand with you. But you must be ready. They will test you. They will try to break you. His heart beat faster, the weight of destiny pressing on his shoulders. Then let them try, he said, his voice steady. Her silver eyes shimmered with light. When the day comes, I will speak your name, and the world will change. But before he could answer, the sound of another door slammed open. A tall figure entered the chamber, one of the princess's advisors, his eyes sharp and filled with mistrust. The human quickly stepped into the shadows. The princess turned her back, pretending to stare at the stars. My lady, the advisor said coldly, you must remember your duty. The warlords grow impatient. They will not wait much longer. Her voice remained calm, though her hands trembled slightly. I know my duty. The advisor's eyes scanned the room. For a moment the human thought he had been seen, but the man only bowed stiffly and left, his cloak trailing behind him. When the door closed, the princess turned back, her face pale. He suspects. They all suspect. The human stepped out of the shadows, his jaw set. Then we must act before it is too late. She nodded slowly, a tear sliding down her cheek. 7 days. That is all we have. After that, my life will no longer be mine. He reached through the bars again, his fingers brushing hers. Then in 7 days, we change everything. Their hands trembled as they touched, fragile yet unbreakable. In that moment, a secret alliance was born, not of politics, not of power, but of trust and destiny. Outside, the towers of the Laura glowed red against the night sky. The warlords prepared for their feast of power, and in the shadows, a human and a princess prepared to defy them all. The days passed quickly, each one filled with tension. The warlords prepared for the great gathering where the princess would be forced to choose her future. The palace walls were dressed in banners of fire and steel. The streets echoed with drums. Soldiers sharpened their blades, and whispers of rebellion crawled through the city like smoke. The human watched from the shadows. Every night he found a way to meet the princess. Every night they spoke in secret. She told him of the cruelty of the warlords, of how they crushed villages and silenced any who dared resist. He listened, and each word only set his heart on fire. On the 5th night, chaos struck. A rival warlord who grew impatient attacked the palace with his private army. His soldiers stormed through the gates, weapons blazing. The guards of the king fought back. Steel clashed with steel. Energy bolts lit the dark sky. The city trembled under the sound of war. The princess was in her chamber, her chains locked tight. She cried out as flames licked the palace walls. The guards tried to drag her away, but suddenly a figure appeared, moving with speed and courage. It was the human. He had slipped through the fire and smoke, his heart steady, his hands gripping nothing but a stolen blade. He shouted and charged at the guards. His blade met theirs. Sparks flew. The sound of metal echoed. The princess gasped, her eyes wide with both fear and hope. No alien had ever fought for her like this. No alien had ever risked his life for her freedom. The human moved with desperation. His body burned, his arms heavy, but his spirit refused to break. He fought one guard, then another. His strikes were not perfect, but his will was unshakable. He kicked one soldier down, slammed another into the wall, and cut the chain that held the princess. She stumbled forward, free for the first time in years, her silver eyes shining with tears. She whispered, "You came for me." He pulled her close. "I promised." But before they could escape, a roar shook the chamber. The rival warlord himself entered, a massive alien covered in armor, his face twisted with rage, his weapon a great axe glowing with fire. He saw the human holding the princess and laughed. "A human dares touch the jewel of the Laura," the warlord growled. "I will break you and take her." The human stood his ground, though his arms ached and his body bled. He raised his stolen blade and faced the giant. The warlord swung. The ground cracked beneath his strike. The human rolled aside. Barely escaping death, he struck back, his blade cutting across the armor. Sparks flew, but the alien only roared louder. The princess cried out, her hands reaching for the human, but she could not interfere. She could only watch as fate unfolded. The battle raged. The human was thrown against the wall, blood dripping from his lips. But he pushed himself up again, his voice a growl. I will not let you take her. The warlord struck again, but this time the human twisted, using the alien's weight against him. The great axe slammed into the floor, cracking stone. The human leapt forward, driving his blade into the warlord's shoulder. The alien roared in pain and stumbled. For a moment, silence filled the chamber. The human stood trembling, his blade shaking. The warlord glared with burning eyes, then struck with his fist. The blow sent the human crashing to the ground, his weapon lost. The princess screamed, rushing to his side, but the guards grabbed her again, dragging her back. She fought and kicked, her voice breaking. No, leave him. The warlord raised his axe for the final strike, but before he could finish, the king's soldiers stormed the room, their weapons aimed. The rival warlord was forced to retreat, his laughter echoing through the flames. The human lay on the ground, barely conscious, his body broken but his spirit unyielding. The princess knelt beside him, her tears falling on his face. She whispered, "Do not leave me." But her words were drowned by the sound of iron chains. The king's guards seized the human, dragging him away. The princess screamed, "No, he saved me. He is mine." But the guards ignored her. Their orders were clear. The human was carried through the burning halls, past the fallen soldiers and broken walls, his vision blurred. The last thing he saw was the princess reaching out for him, her silver eyes filled with sorrow and fire. And then darkness took him. The human awoke in darkness, his wrists bound by cold chains. The air smelled of stone and blood. Torches burned along the walls, casting long shadows. He tried to move, but his body ached. His wounds from the battle burned like fire. He realized he was in the dungeons beneath the palace, a place where few ever returned. Outside the bars, alien guards watched him with cruel smiles. They spoke in their language, laughing at the sight of a human daring to challenge a warlord. To them, he was not a warrior. He was prey caught in a trap. Hours passed, then the sound of heavy boots echoed. The doors opened, and the king's messenger entered. His face was cold as stone. "The human will stand trial at dawn," he declared, "for dishonor, for breaking the law, for touching the jewel of the Laura." At dawn, the dungeons shook with the sound of drums. The guards dragged the human into the great hall of the palace. The chamber was vast, filled with nobles, warriors, and warlords. Their banners hung from the ceiling like the wings of vultures. At the throne sat the alien king, his eyes burning with pride and suspicion. The princess stood at his side, her chains returned, her face pale, yet her eyes burned with fire. When she saw the human dragged in, bloody and weak, her heart trembled. The king raised his voice, deep and sharp. "This human entered our sacred halls. He touched what does not belong to him. He dared to fight a warlord. Such dishonor cannot be forgiven." The crowd roared in agreement, voices shouting for blood. Some demanded his execution, others wanted him torn apart as a lesson to all humans. The human stood tall despite his pain, his eyes fixed on the princess. He did not speak. He did not beg. He only waited. Then, something no one expected happened. The princess stepped forward, her chains clinking against the floor. She raised her voice, clear and strong. "He is no criminal. He is my protector." The hall fell silent. The warlord stared in shock. The king's face darkened. "What did you say?" She lifted her chin, her silver eyes glowing. "He saved me when your guards failed. He fought when no one else dared. Without him, I would not be standing here. If he dies, I will never marry anyone." The crowd gasped. Whispers filled the air like a storm. The nobles murmured in anger. The warlords shouted in protest. The king slammed his staff against the floor. The hall trembled. "You dare defy me, child," he growled. But before the argument could continue, betrayal struck. One of the princess's closest advisors stepped forward, his cloak dark, his eyes cold. He bowed before the king and said, "My lord, forgive me, but the princess has been corrupted by this human. He has poisoned her mind. I will end this myself." In one swift motion, the advisor pulled a hidden blade, lunging at the human. The hall erupted in chaos. The princess screamed. The guards moved too slow. The human twisted aside despite his chains. The blade cut across his arm but missed his heart. He slammed his shoulder into the advisor. sending him stumbling. The advisor hissed, "You do not belong here. Human, she is not yours to save." The human glared back, his voice low but steady. "I will not let you touch her." The guards finally seized the traitor, dragging him down as he spat curses. The king's eyes narrowed, his anger now mixed with confusion. He had seen the human's courage, and he had seen the princess's defiance. The hall trembled with voices, some calling for the human's death, others now whispering that perhaps fate itself was at work. The king raised his hand for silence. His voice thundered, "The human will not die yet. He will face the trial of blades. If he survives, the gods themselves will decide his worth." The crowd erupted again, half in cheers, half in rage. The human's chains were dragged tighter, his body burned with pain, but inside, a spark of fire refused to die. The princess looked at him, her eyes wet with tears. She whispered across the hall, "Do not give up. I believe in you." The human met her gaze, his lips curved into the faintest smile. "I will not fall." And as the drums thundered once more, the fate of the human and the princess moved toward a path of blood and destiny. The night before the trial of blades, the human sat in the cold cell, his body weak, his mind heavy. He thought of the coming battle. He thought of the warlords watching, of the king's cold eyes, and most of all, of the princess. Her words echoed in his heart. "Do not give up. I believe in you." As he sat in silence, a shadow slipped through the dungeon corridor. The sound of keys rattled. The door creaked open. A figure in dark robes whispered, "If you wish to live, follow me." The human rose slowly, his chains dragging, his wounds aching. "Who are you?" he asked, but the figure gave no answer, only hurried him forward. They moved through secret tunnels, carved long ago beneath the palace. The air smelled of dust and forgotten battles. Finally, they emerged near the princess's chamber. She was waiting, her silver eyes wide with fear and hope. "You came," she whispered, rushing to him, her hands trembling as she touched his face. "I thought they would kill you before morning." He gave a faint smile. "They tried." The robed figure bowed to her and slipped away, leaving them alone. The princess pulled the human close, her chains now broken. "We must leave, now, before the king discovers." Together they fled through the hidden passages. The palace roared above them with the noise of soldiers searching. Alarms echoed, torches flared, but the tunnels carried them into the wild desert. The night sky stretched wide, stars glimmering like silver fires. The wind howled over the dunes. They stumbled into the wilderness, far from the city lights. For hours they walked, the human's strength fading, but the princess never let go of his hand. Finally, they found a ruined temple half buried in sand. They hid inside, breathing hard, hearts racing. The princess knelt beside him, her silver eyes shimmering in the faint starlight. "You risked everything for me," she whispered. "Why?" The human looked at her, his voice low. "Because I dreamed of you, long before I ever saw your face. Night after night, I dreamed I would stand beside you, and I could never turn away." Tears welled in her eyes, her hands pressed against his. "I dreamed, too, of a man with fire in his heart, a man who would come from the stars. I thought it was only a story, but it was you." Their foreheads touched, their voices trembling. She whispered, "I must confess, I am no longer afraid. If the warlords take everything from me, at least I have found you." He smiled weakly. "And I have found you." But their moment of peace did not last. In the distance, horns blared, soldiers hunted them through the desert. Their footsteps shook the sand, torches flared like burning eyes. The princess grabbed his hand. "We must keep moving." They ran through the dunes, the cold wind cutting their faces. The human's body screamed with pain, yet he pushed forward, her hand in his gave him strength. Suddenly, a beast rose from the sand, a massive creature with scales of iron and eyes glowing red. It roared, blocking their path. The soldiers were close behind. The human stepped in front of the princess, though he had no weapon, only a broken chain wrapped around his wrist. He shouted at the beast, trying to draw it away. The princess gasped, "No, you will die." But the beast lunged, its jaws wide, and at the last moment, the human struck its eye with the chain. The creature roared in pain and turned away, crashing back into the dunes. The soldiers reached the ridge, their weapons glowing. But the princess lifted her hands, speaking in a language of light. The stars above flared. A wave of silver fire swept across the sand, forcing the soldiers to fall back. The human stared at her in awe. What was that? She breathed hard, her voice shaking. The gift of my bloodline, but it cannot last long. They fled again, deeper into the wild, finally collapsing beneath a lone crystal tree glowing faintly in the desert night. The human held her hand, his voice soft. I dreamed of marrying you. Her tears shimmered as she whispered back, and I dreamed of saying yes. They leaned closer, their hearts beating as one. But before their lips could meet, the sound of horns rose again, louder this time. The enemy had not given up. The human tightened his grip on her hand, his eyes burning with fire. Then we will run, and we will fight, until fate itself gives us our chance. The princess nodded, her silver eyes shining. Together, and under the endless desert sky, hunted by warlords and bound by destiny, a human and an alien princess made a vow that would shake empires. The desert could not hide them forever. By dawn, soldiers of the warlords surrounded the ruins where the human and princess rested. Horns thundered, banners of fire rose over the dunes. The army of the Laura had come to claim what they thought was theirs. The human stood, his body bruised and scarred, yet his spirit unbroken. Beside him, the princess lifted her chin, her silver eyes burning with defiance. The king himself arrived, carried on a great black beast, his crown gleaming with crimson jewels. His voice thundered across the desert. You dare defy me, child. You dare let a human touch what belongs to the throne. The princess stepped forward, her chains dragging in the sand. I belong to no one, she declared. Not to you, not to the warlords. My choice is mine, and I choose him. The crowd gasped. The soldiers murmured in disbelief. The king's face twisted with rage, his voice sharp as a blade. Then he must prove himself. If this human dares claim what is royal, he will face me, here, before all, in a duel of blood. The human clenched his fists. He had no armor, no weapon but the broken chain still wrapped around his wrist, yet he nodded, his voice steady. I will fight. The circle was drawn in the sand. Soldiers surrounded them, their shouts echoing. The king stepped forward, a massive blade glowing with fire in his hands. He towered over the human, his strength legendary. The duel began with a roar. The king swung his blade with fury. The ground split beneath his strikes. The human rolled aside, sand burning under the heat. He struck back with the chain, sparks flying as metal met metal. The princess watched, her heart breaking with each blow. Every time the king struck, the human stumbled, yet he always rose again, his eyes never leaving hers. The king laughed. You are weak, human. You cannot win. But the human growled back, his voice filled with fire. Maybe I am weak, maybe I bleed, but I will never stop, because I fight for her. The crowd fell silent. Even the soldiers felt the weight of his words. The king charged, swinging his blade high. The human ducked low, wrapping the chain around the king's wrist. With all his strength, he pulled. The fire blade fell into the sand. The king roared in fury. The human seized the weapon, its weight almost breaking him, but he lifted it high, his arms trembling, his heart blazing. With a cry he struck, the blade cut through the king's armor. Sparks exploded, the king staggered. The desert shook with silence. The king fell to his knees, blood dark against the sand, his voice weak but filled with hate. This is not the end. Then his body collapsed. The human dropped the blade, his breath heavy, his body broken, but he still stood. The princess rushed to him, her arms wrapping around him, tears streaming down her face. You did it. You lived. He looked into her silver eyes, his voice barely a whisper. I only lived because of you. The soldiers bowed their heads. Whispers spread through the crowd. For the first time, they saw a human not as prey, not as a trespasser, but as a warrior who defied kings. The princess took his hand, her chains falling away. She turned to the people and lifted her voice. I have made my choice. Before all, I choose him, not because he is strong, but because he is human, because he fights with heart. The desert echoed with silence. Then slowly, voices rose, some in anger, some in awe. But no one dared challenge her again. The duel had spoken. The human trembled, his body weak. But when the princess leaned close, her lips near his ear, her words filled him with light. "You dreamed of marrying me," she whispered. "My answer is yes." He closed his eyes, a tear slipping down his cheek, a smile breaking across his bloodied face. "Then my dream is real." Together they stood, a human and an alien princess, their hands bound not by chains but by love. Under the endless stars of the Laura, their story began, a story that would echo across galaxies, a story that proved humanity was more than anyone believed.